Previously on Balls.
And we're going to be turning our attention to cycling. Andrew McLean is here. We'll let you handle that microphone, Andrew, because you're in the broadcast business now as well, so you know what to do. How's it going?
Yeah, good, thanks. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good. How's the shop up the road?
Good. Can do with some of the negative, without some of the negative publicity at the moment.
I was going to ask you, does that affect your business? I mean, because it still doesn't take away the fact that cycling is one of the best pastimes, even if you're not doing it as a sport, but just something, that if you want to be fit, but also it's enjoyable as well. And obviously you're not just talking about the Lance Armstrong thing, but obviously just the craziness of the safety of cycling on the roads in this country.
Well, I think that the safety of cycling on the roads at the moment, with the tragic loss of Barry Stander, is actually more of an effect at the moment. And hence maybe why we're seeing such an explosion in mountain biking. But I say that in the last 2 months, our road bike sales have never been better. So, we've got some great areas like the Cradle just outside of Johannesburg North. Which
I know it?
Just wonderful.
I live out there, so every now and again I suddenly come around the corner and but I must say that it's well marshaled and but it's easier on those more rural areas than it is in the city, and that's the problem. You don't get a lot of taxis there, and I'm going to bring that up because my argument here against the 1.5 meter cycling lanes is that's just going to be another avenue for taxis to try and cut in on traffic. So it's going to become more dangerous.
It is. I don't think the answer, certainly in the big metropolitan areas, is to build cycling lanes because, as you said, you're just going to build another taxi lane. That won't be the answer. However, we do need the 1.5 meter law to be passed so that when someone hits a cyclist, he has broken a proper law that's in the statute. So there's a big move, and it will create awareness.
Yeah.
But the real change has to come from the cycling community. We've got to start with ourselves. We are certainly not squeaky clean, and we got to set a better example. So it doesn't help that cyclists jump red robots, ride four abreast, and upset every motorist on the road. And there's a big movement at the moment to say, come on guys, we've got to get our own house in order before we start pointing our fingers at every motorist.
One of the things I'm thinking about, and particularly in Joburg as well, as a start, is to get all the housing communities, and I'm talking about these like Dane Fern next door here, Four Ways Gardens just down the road here. There are so many housing communities. There's so many of these boomed off areas as well. Can we not start there and make those cycling communities? In other words, because there it's a lot safer. I think there's a lot less traffic in those areas as well. Some of them have even got walking paths and stuff where some of them even have cycling tracks, and start declaring and letting people know that, look, giving cyclists access to those areas. I know they have security concerns and stuff as well, but literally, someone on a bicycle is not going to come out with a TV on his back. You know what I'm talking about? So is there not a way of working together with some of these just to be able to give cyclists? I completely agree. I don't ride a bicycle. I agree that cyclists need to have somewhere where they can go and either just have fun, spend time with the family, just go and do their pastime. If they want to train, go and train as well.
I think certainly for people getting into the sport, families, kids, these boomed-off communities are fantastic. Yeah. But when it comes to cyclists like the Bonitas team, they need areas to go and train. And the first thing is that motorists need to understand that cyclists have a right to be on the road. It's not... Sometimes in South Africa, motorists kind of feel that bikes are for kids in parks. What are you doing? They don't realize that it could be the CEO of Data. He pays a hell of a lot of tax into this country, and he's got a right to be there. And we don't have a culture of cycling, and I don't think we ever will really have a culture of cycling. Whereas in Europe, the guy in his car, his wife, his kids are riding a bike in the village, and he's got a very different outlook. Now, we're not going to change that, and certainly not overnight. But if cyclists chose better areas to train, and the Cradle is a fantastic area, and if cyclists stopped at red robots and we didn't upset motorists, I think we would go a long way to changing the animosity that's developed between motorists and cyclists. There needs mutual respect.
The thing is, you mentioned the Cradle. It's one thing cycling there, which is a fantastic area to do it. But I often wonder how dangerous is it for a cyclist from Joburg to get to the Cradle in the first place. And if they're going to cycle out there, you're taking your life in your own hands because the roads are not wide enough. You get some crazy people. We see accidents with motorbikes on that road all the time. Okay, they're going at hellish speed sometimes, but it's still dangerous getting there. So it's a case of if you've got your bike on the car, you drive out to the Cradle, then you cycle. That's one thing. But still access and it got a long way to go to get it sort of cycle ready and cycle friendly.
We do, and if you look at places like Cape Town, Port Elizabeth, Durban, they're a lot more cycling friendly than we are. Certainly Johannesburg's probably one of the worst places, and hence maybe why the clubs are so strong in Johannesburg, where guys join a club, they ride in big groups. A car can't ride over 30 cyclists, but he certainly can manage to ride over 1 or 2. So guys get into groups, and then I'm always amazed at how many people do just load their bikes on their cars, drive out to the cradle, park it somewhere like Valverde, do their ride, have a coffee afterwards with their mates, and then they drive back in. And if that's the price they've got to pay to be safe on the roads, then some people are prepared to do that.
All right. Well, obviously we were shocked. I mean, as you were saying, one of our best interviews was speaking to Barry. One of the best events I watched in the whole Olympics was Barry's event as well. He didn't win a medal. He was unfortunate, I think, in that event as well, because I think he had to try and make up some ground earlier, which cost him eventually in the race. But I have no doubt he would have been he would have medaled in Rio, if not won the gold as well. So, the tragedy just from the cycling point of view is one thing, but also just how it happened and the fact that he'd actually finished training and was literally close to where he was going. And, I mean, we talk about taxis as well, but it almost seems like this guy made a genuine oversight that any car could have done. He turned and didn't look where he was turning. So it wasn't a willful breaking of road laws or anything. He just did not look at where he was going. But that's how easy it is that you can kill someone on a bicycle.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that motorists need to understand, that when a cyclist makes a mistake on the road or does something silly, it's irritating, but he'll never kill you. When you make a mistake in a car, and mistakes do happen, unfortunately, the consequences are a lot more catastrophic, and in this case, it was death. So, one of the things we've got to look at is possibly riding with lights, like a strobing light on a bike, night and day, because during the day most of us don't use lights. Maybe that would help with the visibility. And the other thing is to possibly look at licensing bikes, where you have a license of sorts. One is that would get around this argument that motorists kind of feel, well, what are you doing on the road? If you've paid a license fee, you're entitled to be there. And of course, then there's a unique number of sorts that you can report a guy, and we can start a bit of a name and shame. You can say, listen, this number 804 did this and this, and you've got a recourse. At the moment, you say, hey, there was a guy in Cycle Lab kit, but I don't know, he was, how are you ever going to find him?
Could be any one of 2,000.
Absolutely. Yeah. So out of a very tragic incident, we are hoping there are going to be some positive steps, and there's a big move throughout South Africa. And you only had to look at how many people supported the memorial rides.
Burries, yeah.
There's a lot of people who are really upset, and there's a lot of things in the pipeline now. And let's hope that when we talk about this in 6 months or a year's time, we can look back and say that was a turning point. Things have changed.
Okay, have government, as it gone to government level, would they have now taken this seriously? Because, the public talk a lot and it gets to a point and then nothing ever happens up there. So have government actually said, from the Ministry of Sport and places like that, have they seen the impact that this has had? And are they actually acting on it?
Well, they've certainly made the right noises, and we had the Minister of Sport, and he certainly said he would support it and help drive the we need the 1.5 meter law passed, and I still see lots of challenges, although the government is saying the right things. And we as a community now are going to need to get together. The Western Cape Pedal Power's done a lot of work. They're already well down the road. In fact, I was at a meeting earlier today. Toyota have just pledged 50,000 Rand to that 1.5 meter campaign, because you're going to need signage. There's going to need to be a lot of awareness. But we're going to need to work hard to get it through. It has been passed in other countries, and it works really well. And that'll be step one, but a lot more that needs to happen to make our roads safer. And, of course, we need to look at ways to keep Barry's legacy going.
I think your big challenge, you talk about changing cyclists' perceptions, but I think your big challenge, and you look at the road deaths over the festive season and how many motor car accidents, and I think it's going to be about changing driver perception of cyclists.
Absolutely, but it's very difficult. There's 100 cars going past out there to change their perception, but we can immediately change our behavior, the behavior of the cyclists. And if we stop doing some of the things that we do, giving cars the finger when they hoot or whatever, and we will start to change the perception of the driver. So let's take ownership of our own,
what you can control,
what we can control immediately, and it will start to flow over to the motorists, because if we're not going to get our own house in order, how will we ever get respect? And we need some mutual respect on the roads. I mean, every single one of us, myself included, every time you get in your car, we break a couple of rules. My cell phone rings, I pick it up and answer it without even batting an eyelid. And, that's the reality of South Africa.
All right, well, that's obviously one of the aspects we want to just hang in there and just get your thoughts on one of the other big stories, which has kind of just taken a huge chunk out of history, really, and that's the Tour de France and the whole Lance Armstrong issue. And I think let's bring Malcolm in here. How's the game, by the way?
Very good.
It's good. What's up for you this year? First of all, let's just so you got the Lange Sports shirt on, a whole lot of sponsors there. Cycling's healthy with you. Obviously, you're part of Team Bonitas.
Yes, yeah. Well, I own and run Team Bonitas and obviously a mountain bike team, RCM. I'm also involved now with the start of the Nzanzi Tour, which is basically Tour of South Africa, which is going to happen in April. So yeah. Now,
is that linked to? I know they did. We used to remember the old report tours in the old days, and now they tried to do the tour. I think a few years ago. I think it happened once and then it disappeared again. It's just now the same kind of to try and resurrect that in a more sort of modern, professional way this time.
Yeah, pretty much. So I actually lobbied to put the tour on before and actually got stolen the whole concept, and they put it on, and basically it was a bit of a disaster. Hence just the first two stages. After that, the tour was actually not bad. But obviously then sponsorships pulled out and it fell apart. So I've gone back to the drawing board and I said, look, this is something I want to make happen, because I came through the era and so did Andrew with the report tour, and that created legends and put something in a great light. So absolutely. I want to resurrect that, and we've got Cat Sita on board, which is government, so it's fantastic.
Awesome. And I mean, if any country should have something like a national tour, it should be South Africa. What used to disappoint me about the old report tour is that they used to eventually they used to ride around the sort of Gauteng area. They did try and I think get a bit of the Eastern Triangle, although there was its own tour for that part of the world at one stage separately. And they'd lose out a whole chunk of the country, go down the coast and finish in Cape Town, which disappointed me. I mean, it's almost you want to have a tour that actually starts up here, goes through Eastern Transvaal, through the Longtown Pass, goes down that sort of KZN coast, but even encompasses all these beautiful parts of our country.
Well, that's the whole thing of a cycling tour. I mean, if you take the Tour de France, it's people that don't even watch cycling, but when the Tour de France is on, they watch the beautiful side of country, the countryside of France. So we've got a beautiful country, we need to showcase it. The Cape Epic does it brilliantly off-road, we need it on-road, and hopefully we can do it, and it's going to be in the Mpumalanga region, from basically Kruger Park, getting down towards Monte Cassino. That's where we're going to finish up on year one. 5-day stage race, and then we're looking to grow that into probably a 9-day stage race.
Awesome.
The year after.
Fantastic. Look forward to them, and well done on getting it back up and running again. Let's go back to the bad news, and let's start off first with you, Malcolm. I mean, the key thing is, at almost I watched this and I almost felt like it was okay. I'm going to just say yes. This all happened. I've taken you guys on a long merry-go joyride for how many years now? So on both sides, there were people that were completely oblivious to this, and there were people that knew, but just basically went along with it. I can't understand how all those guys, over all this time, how he thought he could get away with this when he knew so many people knew exactly what was going on.
Well, I think that's a question everybody is asking. At our level, obviously, we've been in the playing fields. We know exactly what it is like out there, especially at that era in the 80s, 90s. It was the EPO era. We had that choice, that decision to make: do you go that route or not? I opted not to, because I just didn't believe in it. But yes, I think.
Malcolm, if you want to confess on balls now, go ahead and feel free. I mean, just get it out while everyone's doing it.
Well, Darren, that's why I'm here, not overseas. Trying to put on a cycle tour.
Okay. Yeah.
So yes, I think as a cyclist, I definitely knew there was something up. That there must have been something behind that. I mean, 7 Tour straight victories, and it was textbook formation. So I've never been a Lance fan, I'll admit it. And I'd always thought, well, if the bubble bursts, it's going to be a big bubble. And unfortunately, it has happened. But I think the good side of it is that it shows that the testing has really got stringent now than what it was, and they have moved on. And I think guys who are going to take chances are going to get caught now. And I think that's the good side for younger riders that are aspiring to become professional cyclists. There is hope, and I think more hope than when Andrew and I were in the realms of sport, because there was no other option. It was either that or go back and start working.
And that's what I want to ask you, Andrew. Is it good or bad for cycling? People say, they'll look at it from the face of it and say, geez, this is devastating, and cycling might lose its place in the Olympics as well. depending how far this goes and how many of the top guys, who many people think Lance is going to bring down with him, were involved, and we don't know yet. So a lot's still going to come out. But effectively, is this not good for cycling? Because if a guy like this, the biggest cheat in sporting history, surely we're not going to see this happening again.
No, and I think almost in a way cathartic. You know, we need to go through this process, and I think we will come out stronger. It's important, two things. One is that cycling at the moment, for the past 5, 6, 7 years, is nothing like what we're talking about with Lance. A lot has changed. So I don't think it's going to lose its place in the Olympics. I think that it would be very, very unfair and very unlikely that they would punish the new young crop of riders because of what Lance and his mates did 10, 15, 20 years ago. So I think, though, that we need to learn some lessons from this. So as long as we come out of this stronger, I almost think that the route they should have taken was the truth and reconciliation. The area was dirty. Everybody knew that. They should have put a line in the sand and said, we need to find
amnesty.
out. Absolutely. But we want to know who the doctors, who the trainers, who the clinics, how did it happen? Why did it happen? They could have learned so much from that information to make sure that the young riders like Malcolm's youngsters that he's got now don't have to make those same choices that a young Lance Armstrong had to make.
And that's all good and well, but then what I still wonder is, what does it do? Because I mean, it comes out when he's asked, is it possible to win 7 Tour de France's? And he says no, it's impossible. Nothing. What does it do to the legacy of guys that I was more prone towards the Tour de France in the days of guys like Bernard Hinault, Greg LeMond, Laurent Fignon, and those great battles he had with LeMond. Even going back in time, I mean, do we need to start going back and looking at these guys as well now? Or, I mean, did they win Tour de France legitimately?
Well, I hope not, because I can't see any real benefit in going back. How far do you want to go back, and what are you ultimately going to achieve out of this?
Miguel Indurain, there's another one. I mean,
absolutely. There's questions all over. I think, though, the important thing out of this is to note that the current crop of Tour de France winners are not using drugs like Lance Armstrong in that era. I mean, we've got Chris Froome, who is a rider that Malcolm rode with.
Yeah.
We all know him well. Here's a young, clean rider. When he's coming second in the Tour de France, that's a very, very good sign, because in the Lance Armstrong era, Chris Froome would have been lucky to finish that tour. So there's some great things happening. The average speeds are coming down. They take the big climbs and they measure. They know how much the guys weigh and they know how quickly they can ride up. They can work out very quickly how many watts per kilo these guys are putting out. And all the signs are showing that the top riders now are back to clean. So I think we've got to rather concentrate on the future. We've got to learn some serious lessons from the past. But I don't see much benefit coming from this whole Lance Armstrong thing. I think his whole interview with Oprah is partly a publicity stunt.
Yeah.
I think that he wants to get back into competitive triathlon or running or whatever he wants to do. I think if he's going to do that, he's going to have to go under oath and give a lot more information than he's giving at the moment. At the moment, he's saying the right things.
And Batal, a lot of money back to people.
Absolutely. And I think there are a lot of people out there who are going to say that you got to do a bit more than just admit. I mean, I think he's hoping that if at the end of this, Oprah says you've forgiven, America's going to forgive.
Not a confessional box. No.
I think he's got a few more hurdles to jump over before he gets it. And I think there still is some good that can come out of it. I think that Lance, if he really and truly is absolutely 100% honest, tells all, it could be of value. But if it's just a publicity stunt and he's going to say, yes, I did take X, Y, and Z, and he's going to, already when they asked him about a couple of questions he couldn't answer and he avoided them, well, then how can we believe anything he's saying? And if that's the route he's going to go, then he's going to do himself even more damage than he's done.
Well, you kind of partly answered the question, but it's a question for both of you. What are your initial thoughts as you listened to that Lance Armstrong audio, the first thing that came to your mind?
The first thing for me was he didn't sound like a man really, truly, sincerely sorry.
Kind of flippant almost.
Yeah, almost nonchalant about it. He didn't, I mean, I don't want to see him groveling and crying, but I want to see a guy who is really, really sorry.
Yeah.
Looking Oprah in the eye and saying, I need to go and see Betsy Andrea, and I need to get down on my knees and say sorry.
So she was on CNN this morning.
Absolutely.
I mean, she was having a full go at him still after his
chance there to really say, look, I owe you one big apology.
He called her a whore, right?
No, he called her
a fat something.
Which he said, I called her that, but not fat.
Yeah, which is also very flippant. That's irrelevant.
It was, absolutely. So he's almost losing, and he only got one real chance at this, and I don't think he did himself as many favors as he could. There are people, I suppose, who will say, well, the fact that he stood up now and he said it, I mean, there's a lot of businessmen who've stood on people on their way up. There's presidents of countries who've told as many lies as he has, and if he confesses, let it be. But for me, it wasn't sincere. It almost sounded too much like a publicity stunt.
Malcolm?
Well, I heard he's going into politics.
Well, then he'll do a great job. No, mind you, he told the truth, so I don't know. Don't know if he'll succeed anymore. Well, did he tell the truth? We don't know. He'll do well in politics.
Yeah, no, I feel exactly. Andrew's basically touched on everything. It's not genuine. He said basically he just wants this thing to move on. In other words, let me get back and let me start riding again. So,
but then he should have come out. When the swell started going, as opposed to dragging everyone along this time. You can't have your cake and eat it. You can't suddenly come out at a time when you feel like, okay, the heat is so much now, I'm going to just tell the truth and then I want to move on. You can't say, okay, everyone leave me alone now, I've done what I'm supposed to have done. Because how many people have you affected and lives you've affected through what you've been doing and dragging everyone along? So it ain't going to be that easy.
No, not at all. I mean, also, people went into bankruptcy where he sued them when they had defamation of character. And, what happens to that sort of side of things. But, at the end of the day, he still was a good athlete. And we can't face the fact. I mean, he made the difference, obviously, by doping, but becoming an exceptional athlete. But yeah, it's sad, and I just think we need to move on. And I also think UCI should have stepped in long ago. To let him get through 7 titles like that. There's a lot more behind it as well, and that's exactly what Andrew's saying. He needs to talk more and get the people that are actually behind it. Sponsors and all of that. They put a lot of pressure on these guys.
How does that resonate in South Africa? Just finally, I mean. I think a lot of countries where there's a cycling culture will start looking within themselves if they're not doing it already. I mean, we already had one incident last year. But do you feel that we can comfortably carry on with the cyclists that we've got? And is the testing here and the measures in place to avoid us having any more of these come through? Are you satisfied that our cycling is clean?
I am. I think, with the amount of testing, I mean, just within my riders in the team, the guys
so you got tested just after you arrived here as well. I mean, it's amazing. Random.
They find me everywhere. Whenever I'm around you guys, these guys come and test me. No, I think, at a local level, I mean, really, to dope you would be really stupid because, the contracts, the money, the whole thing is really in Europe. That's where you really want to be. Cycling is an enjoyable sport here. Yes, there's the serious side, but we're really a stepping stone, and that's what I'm trying to create here. It's to show the guys the right direction, and from here get them into teams in Europe, and that's really what my aim is to do. And if the sport grows and we can get the funding that we need within it, and we can grow it, and we have more races that the pros are racing on a weekly level, having TV coverage, and get the sport to where it really needs to be, then it's got to be even more stringent. But the tests are in place, and I think the testing that they're doing is good as well.
Awesome. We appreciate you guys' time, both you, Andrew, and Malcolm. Just Team Benitez, so what's planned for this year? What's next up for you guys?
We'll actually start racing tomorrow, so be careful. We'll be out in the cradle. So
there we go, out in the cradle. I'll look out for you guys.
So that's their first race, and then racing pretty much every weekend up until obviously August, and then Zanzi Tour up in April, and then a lot of guys start shipping over to Europe. So I've got 2 of my guys here, Christoph and who's the young and up-and-coming riders.
Awesome. Sorry we didn't have a chance because I think we got enough microphones, but thanks, and we wish them all the best as well. Thanks for bringing the guys out here as well, and thanks for coming out as well, Mal.
Thanks a
lot.
And
Andrew, thank you very much for joining us. Good luck with the initiatives and efforts to make cycling safer here in South Africa. Look at that.
This is Bulls Visual Radio. Darren, Simon, Kate and John. Weekdays from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Central African Time. Bulls.co.za